Hi, guys, and welcome to a new Dawn. I am Dawn, and today's episode is going to be about politics and relationships. So, if you have been here before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you are new here, welcome. So, guys, typically I use my platform to discuss my own experiences with domestic violence and abuse, digital stalking, how I survived those things, and just try to really bring awareness to those situations. I've also used my platform to talk about like my experiences with infertility, with having surgeries, and lastly, choosing to foster and become a parent after the age of 40. So today, I'm going to take a little slight turn with my platform, and it probably will be the first and last time I venture into this area. Talking politics is not really my thing. It's not something that I particularly care to use my platform for, but with the recent election and just the climate of the environment today, I just felt like it was necessary for me to drop my thoughts. So with that being said, let's just jump right into it. To be honest, guys, I wouldn't say that I'm into politics, whatever that means. I don't speak the language very well. But I do know what I feel is right and important to me and the people that I care about. So, honestly, like in the last couple of days since the election, I just have really had this like terrible, anxious feeling about what's to come. I'm a little terrified actually of just the unknown. I do believe that people have a right to choose who they vote for. But as far as me and my house and my family, I will never vote for anything that doesn't represent what is important to me and what I feel like would be important and impact me and my family and the people that I care about the most. So I just have like really mixed emotions. They're kind of all over the place, right? Because of course I think about myself, but now I have a little one. So I think about like how the decisions that we make today impact his future, right? I'll be honest with y'all, part of the reason why I wanted to jump on here today is the day after the election, two thoughts came to my mind very quickly. I stayed up until about 11 the night of the election, and then I woke up about 2:30 and I kind of saw where things were going. And I couldn't deal, so I went back to sleep. But when I woke up the next morning and I kind of saw the results, I just remember thinking to myself, I'm so glad I'm not in a relationship. Like, I am thankful today to be single. And I'm going to expand on that in just a minute. But I also thought that for myself, and this is not an attack on anyone else and their decisions, but for myself, I just felt very thankful that I made a decision a year ago to have a total hysterectomy. And I had came to the conclusion for myself that having a child naturally wasn't in the cards for me. Because with some of the changes that may be coming in our near future, I just don't particularly want to find myself in a situation knowing that I've struggled with my reproductive health for many years. I wouldn't want to find myself in a situation where, I'm having or have had a desire to have a child so badly and then something doesn't work out and I need help and I'm not able to get it, right? That's a completely different area and I don't necessarily want to tackle that today, but that was just my initial thought. Regarding me being in a relationship, I'm gonna go back to my past a little bit, right? So y'all know, if you've been here before, I was in an abusive relationship with my ex. We were together for about 5 years in total. So I met him in 2016. And in 2016, y'all think about who was in office in 2016 and how that went down, right? And think about like the climate of the country during that time. Okay. Just imagine that. I lived in Texas at the time, and you know, I can imagine who my viewers are, but there might be some who fall outside of the demographic that match mine. But it was a rough time. It was a rough time for people of my demographic. It was a rough time for people who are not white. Okay. Living in Texas, I cannot tell y'all that I was personally impacted by anything, but I was in a relationship with someone who very much so felt like they were impacted by the climate of the environment, targeted, if you will. And I can't say that he wasn't, right? You know, there was a lot going on. And at the time that we were together, so we met in 2016, we were in Dallas, and then we moved in 2017 to Houston. During that time, to be quite honest, it felt like Black men were being hunted. And, you know, I mentioned this before, when I was in a relationship with him, I never called the police on him. And one of the reasons why I never called the police on him is because I felt like I didn't want to be the one to put his life in danger in that way. You know, you just calling the police didn't seem like a safe thing at the time. And that's just where my mind was. I'm just being honest with y'all. That's where my mind was. But anyway, I digress. So we were together in 2016. We met in 2016. We moved to Houston in 2017. In 2020, we were still together. Y'all know part of the reason I have spoke on this before, part of the reason why I stayed in this abusive relationship for as long as I did was because I was trying to get pregnant. Like, we were actively trying to get pregnant together. There was a time, and I mentioned this, there was a time where like my mind shifted and I just knew that no matter how much I desired to have a child, I could not have a child with him. Like, in the beginning, I was willing to do anything. I was willing to stay through the garbage. I was willing to stick around through the lies. I was willing to stick around through the abuse because I just was laser focused on being able to get pregnant and have a baby. And in my mind, I felt like once I get pregnant, I can peace out of here, right? Of course, that's not the way it happened, and thank God that it didn't, but that's not the way it happened. But there was a time where we were like actively trying to get pregnant. I was on Clomid. I was monitoring my ovulation. We were like actively trying to get pregnant. We moved to Houston and I had stopped taking Clomid just prior to us moving to Houston. But once we got there, I wanted to start back, right? And right around that time, when we got to Houston, we figured out that, you know, he has some infertility issues, but they could be easily fixed with like diet, exercise, and stop smoking. So just remember that. For men, it's very easy to switch that around. For women, it's not so easy to manage or cure or deal with infertility. Anyway, sidebar. But, you know, we figured that out. We had moved during a natural disaster, which was Harvey. He had already been abusive to me, so it had kind of started getting worse when we were down there. And just the climate, the environment of things were changing. So when we were in Houston, he probably was job hopping in Texas, but I didn't know him long enough to know that he was. But when we were in Houston, he absolutely was job hopping. And it was always an excuse. There was never any accountability on his end to why he would lose a job. It was always somebody's doing something to him. He doesn't get along with the manager. Somebody says something to him sideways. He's not making enough money. This is not the right job for him, etc. And I had his back. Like, I literally had his back. I was supporting him the whole way. When he would be in and out of work, I would be like, don't worry, I got it. I can handle it until you get on your feet, da 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 da. He's a conspiracy theorist. And I didn't know it in the beginning, but I started to discover that when we were in Houston. So he would watch YouTube and he would get these ideas about things that just were weird. To be quite honest, they just didn't align with what I felt like was normal or right. Some things just didn't make any sense. And when it came around time for election, it was like, it's always the great debate, right? Republican versus Democrat. So he never identified as a supporter, but he agreed with some of the ideas, specifically around deportation and building a wall and some other things like that I felt like, what are you talking about? And I remember us having conversations like about, what are you thinking? Because I'm like, you realize he's a racist, right? You're a black man in America who grew up in Mississippi. Like, you're from Mississippi. You've been discriminated against your entire life. What are you talking about? You agree with anything this man says, right? So I just thought that was kind of weird. When COVID happened, I remember him thinking COVID wasn't real. We had arguments about getting vaccinated, right? So it was kind of like, you don't believe COVID is real. You think it's made up. You don't believe in getting vaccinated. You felt like the vaccine is like a chip they're going to put into you. They'll be able to hunt you down and search you and pull up all your information and, all this conspiracy theory stuff. And I would be thinking like, what do you mean it's not real? People are dying. I mean, are you paying attention to what's going on? Like, it's a pandemic. It's real. And we would have arguments about it, right? So it would be like, you may not feel like getting vaccinated is something that you want to do with your body. It's your choice. But whatever I want to do with my body is my choice. And me getting vaccinated shouldn't be a problem for you. But it was, right? So it would just be little things like that like at the time I knew was like a little thing, but it actually was like a big thing, because I started to think like, we don't think the same about a lot of stuff, right? And it's like, you support someone who is clearly racist. You supported someone who doesn't like women. You have a mom, you have sisters, you're dating someone, you work with women, you have a daughter. How can you support someone who doesn't value women? How can you support someone who thinks little to nothing of you? They're flat out racist against you and other people who are not white, and white male, right? So I just began to feel like during that time, I cannot have a baby with this guy, right? Like, it was one thing to be abused. It was one thing to be body shamed. It was one thing to be disrespected. It was like so much wrong with our relationship. It's not even funny. But, when I got to Houston, I felt like, and y'all can go back to inviting the monster in, I felt like I invited him into my space. And once I did that, it was just a little bit harder for me to get him out. But I started to feel like during that time, like, it's one thing for you to do these things to me, but how can I bring a child into this, right? And that's when I knew I can't have a baby with this guy. So I didn't even start taking Clomid. I didn't talk to my doctor about getting pregnant ever again, actually. I stopped monitoring when I was ovulating. I wouldn't say anything to him about it. And it was hard because I was really just suffering in silence. I knew I wanted to have a baby. So every month I would come on my period, I would be thankful that I had my period, but I would also be depressed because I was thanking God that I'm not pregnant by this guy. But at the same time, I was like, resenting the fact that I'm not pregnant yet. And the more I stay with this guy, like it may not happen for me ever, right? Like I just felt like it's not going to be in my cards. All of this to say, and the thing is, y'all, like all of this that I'm saying and I'm telling and talking to y'all about is really just to say, like, and again, I don't usually use my platform for politics. I'll probably never do it again. But I'm just feeling like a kind of way right now, right? And there's like this great debate now about like, some people feel like you can agree to disagree and we can still be friends. I'm not going to tell y'all that I agree with that statement or not. Because I don't want to use this platform for that. But what I definitely want y'all to consider, and it's not so much about the friends that you keep, the company that you keep, your family members, because, we've cut people off and out of our lives for much less things. But what I want y'all to do is think about the person that you're sleeping next to. Think about the person that you share a bed with. Think about the person that you're spending most of your life with, that you're planning to have a future with. Think about the person that you are reproducing with or you're thinking about reproducing with, right? Like for me, and I can't judge anybody, but for me, it became like I can't procreate with someone who doesn't value the same things that I value. If you are voting for the op, you are the op, okay? It's kind of like you're supporting someone who doesn't value me and we're together. How does that work? How do you support someone who doesn't value my rights as a woman, as a person, as a human being, to make a choice about my body and what to do with it? Like, you agree with that. And I'm not saying that this person agreed or disagreed with abortion or, things like that. But just thinking about when it came to being vaccinated, we literally had an argument about me getting vaccinated when I got the first round. When I went to get the second round, I didn't tell him I was going. I told him that I was going to do it, and he was upset about it. So when I actually went to my appointment, I didn't tell him that's what I was doing until I got finished. And he hung up the phone on me. He was so mad, and he started cussing me out, and then he just hung up the phone on me. And I could not figure out, like, why are you so upset about that? That me choosing to be vaccinated has absolutely nothing to do with you. But it was very telling about his personality. And I just want y'all to think about, because at the end of the day, I do use my platform for domestic violence awareness. Now, my ex was never abusive towards me behind politics, but we did get into some heated discussions about it. And I learned very quickly that this ain't something that I want to go, like, I don't want to go down this road with you, because I don't want to know if you will get violent with me behind a disagreement, because he was already abusive to me, right? So I just want y'all to be careful. I want y'all to be careful with who you're choosing to lay with, who you're choosing to share your home and your space with. I want you to be careful with who you're choosing to reproduce with, because it's real. It's like that. And in the current environment and the current climate, the way things are, this next couple years is going to be rough for us. Okay. It's going to be rough for a lot of people. And what I discovered And it became very real to me during COVID and the pandemic because, we were shut in. And my job, the job that I do, I'm not an essential worker, but I had a capability of working from home. So I was able to maintain. The person that I with wasn't so lucky. And that was another eye-opening experience because things just became very hard very quickly. And when people are put in these stressful situations and they don't know how to deal with it, sometimes they take their anger out on the people who are closest to them. So I want y'all to be careful. I want y'all to be careful and I want y'all to be safe. And if you need help, say something. Confide in somebody. Reach out. We just are living in some crazy times. We're living in some crazy times right now. And I care about y'all. I love y'all. And I want y'all to stay safe. I want y'all to stay positive. I want y'all to stay encouraged. For me, I know my family, it's almost kind of like I feel like I'm grieving with this results of the election. But we are resilient and we are survivors. So I know that we'll get through it. We're going to be fine, but you just have to protect yourself. I didn't realize at the time that some of these things that were these conversations that we were having, these arguments that we were having, I mentioned that they are telling about that person, but they were red flags. So I just want y'all to keep an eye out. And that's all I got. That's all I got today, guys. I hope that y'all are okay. And that's really all I can say. I hope y'all are okay. I thank y'all so much for tuning in. Next episode is going to be back to business as usual because I got some more stories to tell. So with that being said, thank you guys very much. Don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe. And I will catch y'all next time.